Hi there, this is Mrs. Meek, and I just wanted to discuss these notes with you. These notes need to be taken on your own paper, notebook paper. You can put them in a spiral bound notebook, or if you want to make a foldable, I'll be showing you how to do that. Sketch notes are really popular. I'm not much of an artist, but a lot of it is just labeling things and making sure you have things organized in a way that's meaningful for you. So we're going to talk about, and I'll show you how to do some of these things as we discuss the notes. So we're talking about macromolecules today, and this is based on organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of organic compounds, which are living things. So life is carbon-based. All living things are made up of carbon. 96% of living organisms are made up of four main elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. All right, so if I was making my sketch notes, I drew the little person, all right, and I tried to draw it similar to what you see on the diagram. Obviously, you see that I am not an artist, but it's going to help me remember things. All right, and then the next thing you need to understand is that macromolecules, macro means big, so these are rather large molecules in your body, and they're made up of monomers. Monomers are essentially the building blocks. So I also drew that in my sketch notes. And a polymer is a larger molecule that is made up of repeating units that are bonded together. So that's where we get macromolecules. So macromolecules are these big molecules that are made up of these smaller little units. All right. There's a video here we're going to watch really quick.
What do silk, DNA, wood, balloons, and silly putty all have in common? They're polymers. Polymers are such a big part of our lives that it's virtually impossible to imagine a world without them. But what the heck are they? Polymers are large molecules made of small units called monomers, linked together like the railroad cars from a train. Poly means many, and mono means one, and mers or marrow means parts. Many polymers are made by repeating the same small monomer over and over again, while others are made from two monomers linked in a pattern. All living things are made of polymers. Some of the organic molecules in organisms are small and simple, having only one of a few functional groups. Others, especially those that play structural roles or store genetic information, are macromolecules. In many cases, these macromolecules are polymers. For example, complex carbohydrates are polymers of simple sugars, proteins are polymers of amino acids, and nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, which contain our genetic formation, are polymers of nucleotides. Trees and plants are made of the polymer cellulose. It's the tough stuff you find in bark and stems. Feathers, fur, hair, and fingernails are made up of the protein keratin, also a polymer. It doesn't stop there. Did you know that the exoskeletons of the largest phylum in the animal kingdom, the arthropods, are made of the polymer chitin? Polymers also form the basis for synthetic fibers, rubbers, and plastics. All synthetic polymers are derived from petroleum oil and manufactured through chemical reactions. The two most common types of reactions used to make polymers are addition reactions and condensation reactions. In addition reactions, monomers simply add together to form the polymer. The process starts with a free radical, a species with an unpaired electron. The free radical attacks and breaks the bonds to form new bonds. This process repeats over and over to create a long-chain polymer. In condensation reactions, a small molecule, such as water, is produced with each chain-extending reaction. The first synthetic polymers were created by accident as byproducts of various chemical reactions. Thinking they were useless, chemists mostly discarded them. Finally, one named Leo Baekeland decided maybe his useless byproduct wasn't so useless after all. His work resulted in a plastic that could be permanently squished into a shape using pressure and high temperatures. Since the name of this plastic, polyoxybenzylmethylene glycolin hydride, wasn't very catchy, advertisers called it Bakelite. Bakelite was made into telephones, children's toys, and insulators for electrical devices. With its development in 1907, the plastics industry exploded. One other familiar polymer, silly putty, was also invented by accident. During World War II, the United States was in desperate need of synthetic rubber to support the military. A team of chemists at General Electric attempted to create one, but ended up with a gooey, soft putty. It wasn't a good rubber substitute, but it did have one strange quality. It appeared to be extremely bouncy. Silly putty was born. Synthetic polymers have changed the world. Think about it. Can you imagine getting through a single day without using plastic? But polymers aren't all good. Styrofoam, for example, is made mainly of styrene, which has been identified as a possible carcinogen by the Environmental Protection Agency. As styrofoam products are being made, or as they slowly deteriorate in landfills or the ocean, they can release toxic styrene into the environment. In addition, plastics that are created by addition polymerization reactions, like styrofoam, plastic bags, and PVC, are built to be durable and food safe, but that means that they don't break down in the environment. Millions of tons of plastics are dumped into landfills every year. This plastic doesn't biodegrade, it just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, affecting marine life and eventually making their way back to humans. Polymers can be soft or hard, squishy or solid, fragile or strong. The huge variation between means they can form an incredibly diverse array of substances, from DNA to nylon stockings. Polymers are so useful that we've grown to depend on them every day. But some are littering our oceans, cities, and waterways with effects on our health that we're only beginning to understand.
All right, so that's our little discussion. That's a nice little video that goes over some of the benefits and dangers of using polymers. All right, so let's talk about the first of our 4 macromolecules. And for this, I would suggest you make a table. All right, so this is where making a table would be really helpful. All right, so you're going to see at the top, your headings are macromolecule, structure, or the elements that make it up, the building blocks, so the monomers, then the function and example. All right, I also have created a foldable. So a foldable can be created by folding your piece of paper. I guess they call this hamburger style. So you're folding and making flaps. All right, and then for each flap, you're going to have one of the 4 major macromolecules. All right, you don't have to worry about doing these drawings. I just did it because I'm a science geek and I love molecular models. So I put those on there. You don't have to do those, or you can if you like them. All right, so you're going to put one of each macromolecule on each flap of your foldable. I'm going to show you how to make the foldable. The first thing I do is I fold my paper in half to get a crease so I know where the center of my paper is. So I make a crease, all right, and then I'm going to fold the top half down to that crease, all right, and then the bottom half I'm going to fold up to the crease. All right, so I've got my top half folded down to the crease, and then my bottom half is going to be folded up to the crease. All right, so there we go with that. And then I'm just going to take scissors and cut my flaps to make 4 flaps. All right, so there's a quick and easy foldable that you can make. And then you're going to put the name of all 4 of the macromolecules on one flap, and then you're going to put all the important information inside. Same thing, function, the monomer, which is the building block, the structure, and examples. All right, so I would create a table or a foldable for this part. All right, you decide, pick one. All right, so let's get back to the notes here. Carbohydrates are built from sugars. Proteins are built from amino acids. Lipids are built from glycerol and fatty acid tails, and nucleic acids are built from nucleotides. So let's get into each one in more detail. All right, so these notes are talking about what they mentioned in the video, dehydration synthesis. All right, so I took some sketch notes on this part. All right, so dehydration synthesis is when you remove water to build molecules. This is important for repair and growth. Okay, so this is how we would put together muscles. So we'd link together amino acids and we would make protein. All right, and then if we're breaking apart molecules, this is now the opposite, which is hydrolysis. All right, so hydrolysis, I would add this to my notes. So if you're making the foldable, you can simply add it to the back of your foldable, the information on dehydration, synthesis, and hydrolysis. In hydrolysis, we're adding water, all right, to break apart molecules into their building blocks. So this occurs in your body when you're digesting food. So you might eat starch, maybe some bread or some pasta, and you're going to break that starch down into the building blocks of glucose. Okay, so those are two terms that you need to be familiar with, but what I really want you to focus on in these notes is the different types of macromolecules. So the first one that we're going to add to our table is carbohydrates. So the structure is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The building blocks are sugar. The function is to provide energy. I know that most of you eat carbohydrates to get energy. Examples are glucose, sucrose, and starch. Other examples include cellulose, which is what provides structure for plants, and chitin, which is the outer shell of arthropods, including insects. All right, our next group is lipids. So you may need to pause me so you can get all this information filled in. All right, so the lipids, are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and phosphate. All right, so all of that would go under the flap for lipids. Okay, you can put them on your foldable, doesn't matter which flap you use for which one. The building blocks for lipids are a glycerol backbone and fatty acid tails. All right, that's fun to say. We're going to talk about those in a minute. Their primary function is to store energy for your cell membrane and insulation. All right, fats and oils are in this category. So fats are typically solid at room temperature, whereas oils are liquids at room temperature. The most important lipid that we're going to talk about this year are phospholipids. So phospholipids are an important part of your cell membrane. And we're really going to get into those in great detail. So you better fall in love with phospholipids. Proteins. Proteins are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. All right, so their building blocks, or the monomers, are amino acids. 15% of your total body mass is made up of protein. Their job is to transport substances. We have a really important group of proteins called enzymes. All right, enzymes help to carry out chemical reactions. Also, protein makes up your bone, your hair, your nails, your skin, your muscles. Okay, moving on to nucleic acids composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphate. The building blocks are nucleotides, which are made up of three main parts: a phosphate group, a sugar, and a nitrogen-containing base. Their function is to store and transmit genetic information, which means to pass on. All right, so this includes your DNA and your RNA. All right, so those are the 4 macromolecules of life. All right, so please take a minute, organize your work, and make sure that you have a complete table. All right, the rest of them, you could just do some kind of notes in your notebook. For your foldable, each flap is a macromolecule with the important information under the flap. These are great to help you organize your thoughts and help you study. So please take some time and create some awesome notes. You're going to need them for your open note quiz later this week. Have a great day.